Call the meeting to order. It's the Walpole Board of Sewer and Water Commission. In attendance this evening, we have Stephen Nunnery, Assistant Superintendent, William Abbott, Commissioner, Pradeep Misra, who is the clerk, Patrick Fasanello, Commissioner Emeritus. We have Scott Gustafson, our superintendent, and we have our new executive secretary, Derek. So we're all set here. We are missing Commissioner Fisher, but we'll proceed. We've passed the abatements around.
I'll make a motion, we sign the abatements.
Second?
I second.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
I'm opposed.
Okay.
It's getting ridiculous now that we're
3-1.
still doing this.
All right, quickly, on the correspondence, we have the letter from Mr. Bain.
Did we get the superintendent's status report?
Sure, why don't we do that?
Certainly. So, since the last meeting's been relatively quiet, we had a minor service leak on North Street Circle. Other than that, no breaks. This Thursday, we'll have the bid opening for the Morningside Drive Sewer Station Rehabilitation. The Phase 2 SCADA upgrade, I mentioned at the last meeting that things were going kind of slow. The pace has picked up on that. They were out today installing the remote equipment at one of the well sites. The other sites have all their panels constructed, but this will be the first one that actually goes in and gets debugged and troubleshooted. Last Wednesday, the ZBA voted favorable action for the board to be allowed to change the hours of the septic facility within the normal business hours of Monday to Friday, 7 to 3:30. And other than that, we're still performing our routine tasks and maintenance.
Okay?
I got a question for Scott. On Northwood, what's it called, Northwood?
North Street Circle?
Circle,
Yeah.
right. The service leak, where was it on the service? It's for my own edification.
That one I'm not sure. I can find
You know
out
what I'm
for
saying,
you.
is it
was-
on
it was
the
minor.
corporation or is it, someplace? Just curious because, I'm just curious where, it's corroding. Or
Right.
was it a leak because of the heavy traffic or something like that?
I understand.
All right, that's all,
Yeah.
I just want to.
That's something I can include going forward, if you wanna know the details,
Yeah.
exactly
well,
what type of leak it
Somebody
is.
will know, right,
That's why I usually mention like the circle cracks or that thing on the mains, but
all right,
I can get
Northwood
them.
Circle. Okay, thank you.
All right, on the correspondence, we have the letter from Mr. Bain. Anybody have any questions or comments about that?
They are aware of us doing a survey, or will be doing a survey for the hitching post, Clarkson Drive area. We apparently had some discussion, I believe back in April, I think he said, and they would like, and I'm assuming it's the area, not just him, to have a similar survey done just to get a sense of whether there's an interest in having sewer and just bringing that information. I did, the last meeting I had a note to you, John, that, listed what the costs were, which I thought was appropriate. I have adjusted it if we wish to send a similar one out. I have right here that I could give to Derek that just basically changes the numbers so it would be done for the North Walpole area. I assume we would do a similar type survey.
Okay, anybody else? Yeah, in that regard, Bill, I was gonna discuss, where we're gonna discuss this. The draft email, and exhibit for Hitching Post Road. Can we do that under old business?
Yeah.
Okay. So that allows us to take up discussion. Item 1, Washington Terrace. We have present Mr. LaCivita, resident. Does it, Scott, do we have any information?
I believe at a meeting prior that we left off with looking into how much it would cost for the town to install a stub up to the property. And we took a look at the layout, the utilities, and best ballpark figure would be around 30,000 if we contracted it out. In-house, probably be a third of that. And keeping that in mind, it's a little tight there with utilities. So that's where we're at.
Do we have a map or any kind of stuff to look at?
I don't have a
Do you have a
map, no.
diagram or?
No. If you're still interested in pursuing either direction, then we can try to fine tune that down to a more precise number.
Well,
I got a plan on the truck of Washington Street and the whole thing, if you wanna see that.
I'd like to see that.
Okay.
the town was doing some work at the intersection of Washington Street and,
Traffic signal.
oh, is that what that was? Well, I thought maybe they were digging, I didn't know. So what are the utilities, are you talking about stormwater or
No,
storm drain or?
Talking about sewer, water, all utilities.
There's not underground electric there,
I don't believe so.
no. So you're saying it's tight in terms of, they're not 10 feet away, 10 feet apart?
Just where the location is, and that's something that I have. I do have a map, but I don't have it with me.
Thank you. Okay, so, where are we looking at this now? How does this work?
Give me a second, find that area here now. My house is on a pencil, right here. This is Washington Street, this is 334. I'm not sure what this number is, but there's a terrace, comes around like this.
Okay.
And I think it's about 5 foot deep here,
Uh-huh.
so it would make it under the electric. There's an electric conduit here, it would make it under it.
So you're working for these people here?
No, I'm working for me here.
Oh, you're on here.
Yes.
I don't see the building, that's why.
Well, this is 100 years
Oh,
old.
you're gonna put a building in there?
No, it's
Why?
there.
There's a street there, it's Washington Terrace, it just.
Yeah, I
this
don't
is an
see
old
it on-
plan. Well, the plan doesn't show it, it's an
Yeah, well,
old,
that's why I'm
it's an old
confused.
utility plan.
Okay.
1935.
So,
Very well.
so you wanna connect to the sewer
Yes.
with a gravity to
As
your,
far as we can gravity, I don't believe I can gravity, all three of us are gonna have to pump.
so it's gonna be, are you all gonna be together or it's individual
Sure.
pumps?
The other lady's turning 100 tomorrow, she don't care about nothing.
Okay, but I'm saying, is it gonna be a community pump or,
I don't think there's enough land in
Each
there to
person
do a
gonna have
connecting individual.
individual pumps, and one person's not gonna connect?
Well, she's 100, I don't think it's gonna be too long before they're gonna wanna hook up to it.
Portion will be
The
gravity,
Bird Park is right here in the back.
Yeah.
they have a manual here, with gravity going from there, and they would pump up to it.
And so what do you want from the town?
Just a stub.
I want
You want us to put the stub in? Wanna pass this down?
Now, you said 30,000.
Rough.
I just had a drop
It's not,
on
doesn't show the street, there's a
382.
street.
project, and it was nowhere near that.
Okay.
If we get a contract for 30,000, if we do it ourselves, it's what?
About a third of that.
About
About a
what,
third. About 10, about a third.
About 10? Okay.
And these are still, like I said, preliminary ballpark numbers. If you want
Yeah, I
a number
already
that's more tight, looking for more detail, we just need to know what direction you want to go in.
I would refine that number because that 30,000 is
I'll pass it back on.
absurd. I wouldn't get that number.
In discussion with engineering.
Okay, Scott, what's the cons here?
The only con I can see is, potentially setting a policy direction. But as far as cons, I don't see a con with sewer.
We put stubs in all the time, right? How is that different
It is,
policy?
I don't really see it as you're asking for any type of con, it's just,
Yeah, no,
just to
that,
keep in mind, maybe it's not a con, you wanna keep in mind that you're setting, a precedent, or more of a precedent, I know there's been precedents in the past, but I don't see a con to adding sewer.
yeah. No, okay, I'm just curious if it were something that I'm missing here.
Adding sewer would be more beneficial than a con,
Yeah, so it would cost us 10 grand to put this in?
in-house.
Yeah, okay, and that's, but we do put stubs in. Or if the contractor's doing it, they put it in.
Right.
Okay, and, it has to be in a specific location, right? We
Right.
usually ask them where they want the stubs
Right.
when we do it, okay. All right, okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Anybody else, have any thoughts?
4 houses total?
Three,
3 houses or 4 houses?
sorry,
3 or 4 houses?
three, those many.
So,
And, mine isn't, but I'm pretty sure the other two are 35.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as age, and I don't think I know they weren't half entitled or anything.
Yeah.
And mine's questionable, because I don't wanna build my backyard up 5 feet and all that kind of,
yeah, I mean, I think we're,
When I have access to storage, it makes no sense for me to build my yard up where I can, get the storage.
So,
it's like an ounce of prevention is worth 10 pounds of cure.
that's,
He has the ability to take this stub and turn it into sewer service for 3 homes, it's a win, as far as I'm concerned.
all right.
So I don't know if you wanna make the motion?
Well, just have a question. Why don't you do this yourself? Why don't you put the stub in?
I was hoping the town would, but if you want me to put it myself, then
Well, is there, Scott, is there any reason why he can't put the stub in?
No,
So, all he wants basically is,
If I could, once it gets to the street, it belongs to the town.
what?
Once it gets into the street, it belongs to the town.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're gonna have a private party put in a sewer and dedicate it to the town?
he'd have to. Right, we know that. Yeah, if he puts a stub in, and he would have to then deed that over to the town, the stub part.
I don't wanna own it.
What? No, of course you don't. Why would you wanna own it?
No, I don't. The issue becomes, I was hoping the town would put it in, and if you want, put it on our taxes. I don't wanna be, like, you don't see anybody else in with me tonight, you know what I mean? I don't wanna be the back and forth guy.
Yeah.
If we get access, when I have access, I'll be hooked up with them a week.
Well, Scott's remark is not unreasonable. Usually, the stubs go in when when the sewer is put in.
Yes.
I'm just curious, why wasn't that done then?
I don't think there was a street there at that time.
It's old time, I mean, it's,
Okay,
this tree was created in 30 or something, or 20.
okay, so
before.
it's an age thing.
But the town has been collecting taxes for 100 years on the property, and they're entitled to some services from the town. And I think it's reasonable, if all they want is a stub to get the sewer, they're solving us. They could probably come back and demand that we put sewer in there if the septic's failed.
Well,
So,
I have no problem with the stub, I just don't wanna pay for it.
Makes two of us.
but wouldn't, under a traditional system, wouldn't the town be paying
Well,
25%, Bill?
Now, the 25%, yes, that's how a betterment, you break down from the betterment, and the
Well-
homeowner would pay 75. That's if we're doing it. That's in the past how it would be handled.
Because we could split it with them. I mean, if that makes you feel like he's putting more skin in the game. But he's still gotta build this whole sewer line and bring it to his house.
he does, but it's gonna be, well, it won't be his sewer, because he's gonna deed it over to the town, right?
he's not deeding the stub over.
Huh?
The stub he's talking about deeding over.
I'm talking about now, when he puts that sewer in, right, for those three houses. He's gonna turn that sewer line over to the town.
Mr. Chairman, is Washington Terrace a town-owned street?
It's on the
It
town,
is.
it's the town street list.
Okay.
It's private,
Private, what does
I
that mean?
think they call it unacceptable.
unaccepted. It's private
Unaccepted.
way maintained by the town.
Okay.
You know what this is bringing to mind? Remember that we had a private sewer, and we had all kinds of problems because
When
we
you
didn't.
ever gonna forget that?
You remember this, right? That's why I'm a little cautious. Maybe I've been on the commission too long and I see all the problems we've ever had.
You
and
get
I'm
frozen.
wary of that. Truthfully, I'd rather he do it all and turn it over to the town. That's what I'd like. I don't see any problem with the actual connection. I think we should, you know, the sewer existed and it's there for the people to use.
But if we break this down, Scott, $10,000 to put it in,
In-house.
we pay 2,500, 75% goes as a betterment?
If we pay for the stub,
Yeah.
it'd be $10,000.
What did we do in Eastland Circle, which wasn't exactly the same, but we had a private road or whatever, and they wanted, I think it was water. Was it water, Rick? Eastland Circle?
Water and sewer. both.
Water and sewer?
What we did with those was special entrance fees. You could do the same thing here.
So the town paid and then they charged them a fee?
Right. When they went to connect, they paid a connection fee that was equal to what the connection fee would be plus the betterment.
So if he was given authority to do the connection himself,
If there
would
was
we,
no-
would we at least have the engineering department do a proper drawing of the connection so that, we make sure that,
Yeah, I mean, that's not,
if we would do that, then his part would just be to construct it?
yeah, doing the drawing's the easy part. That's,
Yeah,
that's
well,
not an issue.
I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, he should get at least the betterment, which is 25% that the town would ordinarily pay. And I don't, to me, if we're $10,000 and there are 3 homes, that's 3,000 and change per house. I just think it's solving a problem, preventing a problem down the road.
I like the special entrance fee idea.
Yeah, but
That
it's
we
done-
did, that we did previously, because it
Yeah.
kind of set a precedent, so.
Did we have to have a town meeting article, Rick, do you
Oh,
recall, for Eastland Circle for any,
There was a town meeting article in 2000,
that's what I thought.
and I think the total appropriation was like $135,000.
And I know there is a betterment for it. I saw it today, doing some research. That's what brought to my mind for that project, so I knew that there might be something that we could use
Right.
as,
Well, if we gave him an easement to connect, would that help you or no? Would that,
Yeah, the only problem with doing what you're saying is, I have to deal with 2 other customers, 2 other people. If you bring it in and tell us it's gonna cost us this much money each, then they'll have to pay. I don't have to chase them down.
If he was by himself down there, I'd say, you know, let him tackle it on
Yeah,
his
well,
own.
with me, it'd be a
But
different
there's,
situation.
there are three other problems.
I just had this done at 382 Washington Street, from the main into that building at my home. It cost me 11.2, soup to nuts. So, I mean, you're not gonna be going that far coming off, because you gotta be 4 feet deep to tie in when I come in. If you come down with your gravity, you have to be at least 4 feet deep, because those pumps, those things freeze up, so they have to be down 4 feet. So I'm not sure it's gonna be that far down the terrace. It's basically gonna be getting off the road.
right, well, that's, and you don't care whether it's a grinder pump, spaghetti line, or,
That's my plan, is if you give me a spot, I'm gonna put a pump in my yard and get it. If they, you know, come along and do it. The guy next door wants to, and like I said, this is less than, someone's gonna have to do it in the next couple of years, because she's, you know, up there in years, but I don't think she's gonna stay there much longer.
mean, I would, so for, I guess, sake of discussion, I'd make a motion to, extend sewer to Washington Terrace under our traditional model. And, do it based on, a stub as far as the gravity would go. And then
What charge betterments to, is
Yeah.
how to pay for
With
it.
the tax inspector.
the 3 betterments, yeah,
Second.
okay?
What's the traditional model?
Like we're doing on Hitching Post Drive and Clarkson Drive and so forth. It's a betterment. The town pays
Yeah.
25%, we do give them
And they
sewer. In this
pay,
case, we're giving them,
3/4 would be of the cost is spread amongst the properties receiving the betterment.
Now, I'm just thinking, you put the stub in, and the elevation is off, and
It doesn't matter, it's a pump system.
that's true, okay.
okay. So it's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Discussion, hold on.
Oh, anybody
One
else?
quick discussion. Like hitching posts, we're polling everybody. We've only had you representing the 3 properties. Do we officially need to reach out to the other 2
Well,
properties?
the other guy was involved in again, but he did sign a piece of
Yeah,
paper.
he did.
He'd go in on it, so if you want me, I'll get that.
So that's 66%.
We got the signature of the
Okay.
other.
Right.
That's fine.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500.
Who's starting on it? No.
We'll bring you a shovel.
I think I might have that piece of paper with the 2 signatures. It's on the truck, I'll bring it in.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. MWRA, this is the big topic. Sorry to bother you all with little emails and whatever, just trying to get, you'll notice on the desktop here somewhere, you got a copy of the Herald article, commissioners, did you see it? And then we emailed you a summary of the decision from the actual board of the MWRA to review. And Derek has given you a hard copy of that as discussion item 2. So why don't we,
I have what was actually voted, if you're interested, John, by the board of, MWA's board.
well, that's this here.
This one.
No. This, I found
the-
what they actually, what
The
they,
motion itself,
and what, that it was voted. And I'll just
Give
read
that
it.
to Derek.
Yeah, I'll give it to Derek, that the Board of Directors approve revision to the MWA policy OP.10, admission of new community to MWA water system to permit a waiver of MWRA's entrance fee under certain conditions for communities entering the system or purchasing additional water during the next 5 years, as further set forth in the September 14th, 2022 staff summary presented and filed with the records of this meeting. The 5-year waiver would extend through calendar year 2027. Communities seeking entrance fee waiver would need to show that they are seeking admission to or additional water supply from the MWA because their local sources are impacted by water quality issues, their water supply is located in a stressed basin, or local economic development is significantly constrained by their existing water supply. Communities will be responsible for the cost of connecting to the MWA system. A total maximum of 20 million gallons per day would be available under this waiver for communities that are not currently members of the MWA. There's no volume limit for communities that are currently members of the MWA water system. So that was what the actual motion
right?
that was voted.
And you do have the extended 10-page explanation from their meeting. They call it the Water Policy Oversight on the Vote.
Right.
So it's good background. All right, Mr. Festno, you want to?
No, it's, when you look at it kind of logically, and I was just talking about this before. We're like 72 miles from the best water in the entire United States. And it's all uphill. So this water wants to come here. It could flow right out. If you stuck a pipe in Quabbin and ran it down to Walpole, the water would run right into Walpole. Okay. And it's the best water in the country. And you can check that. It definitely is the best. But here's the part that I found absolutely astounding. When they built Quabbin, there's a whole bunch of legislation that goes with the building of Quabbin back in the 1920s. And one of the things I never knew is that Quabbin gets first priority on all the water that falls in Massachusetts. In other words, there's hydroelectric plants on some of these rivers. They do not get priority. Quabbin gets priority on everything. And that's in itself is amazing that any water belongs to Quabbin. The other thing is that, let's say for some strange reason, it didn't rain for a drop of rain for the next 10 years. Quabbin, the way it's currently situated and with the people who are using it, can supply the current amount of water for those 10 years. That means there's no water going into Quabbin, and yet it would take 10 years for it to stop producing enough water to supply its customers. That to me is absolutely amazing. So we're very fortunate in Massachusetts, and it's not actually being fortunate. Back in the 1920s, they realized that they were going to need a water supply to feed the metropolitan areas. So they actually did something about it. They created the legislation, like I just told you about. I mean, they destroyed, I think, 4 towns. They buried them under Quabbin. You can imagine that the environmental concerns and everything else, the hurdles they had to get through. They did that in order to establish this reservoir to make sure our economic activity continued into the future. The thing is, the people who lived in Massachusetts all paid for this, but the people who get the benefit were just the metropolitan area. But actually, there is a few towns that the water goes the other way. I mean, there's 2 aqueducts that come into the metropolitan area, but there's some feeder lines out the back that feed some of those towns there. Nevertheless, this is an economic infrastructure provider. It lets us, expand infinitely practically. And the thing is, it's such good water. But now, I was told that it has about 2% PFAS. But the engineer that I talked to said, oh no, there's no PFAS. I don't know what to believe. I'll just tell you, I heard those 2 different, 2%. We have currently, what are we running in our blended water right now?
Which plant?
All of blended coming into.
So the
going
Willis
out.
plant, the Willis plant is reaching detection limit, which is 2 parts per trillion. So I don't know about percentages, but we measure it in parts per trillion.
So,
If it's below the 2 parts per trillion, it's considered non-detected.
all right.
And the Lane plant is more in the 12 or 13 range.
That's the first part about it, okay. And
That's the
as-
blended amount?
Blended, yeah.
What's the well that has the problem, or wells that have?
Washington 3 and Washington 2.
Those, okay, so the PFAS is the latest thing to come from the horizon. But it's also, if we're gonna have drought conditions every summer, then we should have access to the water who's right there. I mean, it's not like it's unattainable. It wants to come here. So I think we should take advantage of this unique position that we can hitch into it. When we discussed this at the beginning, and I'm on the board, the advisory board, I made the point that if they make the entrance fees so expensive, the towns can't do it. They just can't do it. We know what the entrance fee would have been, right? So I think they heard me, because that was about 3 years ago when I was explaining to them that the towns just didn't have that kind of bucks to do that. So, and when they started to vote on this waiver, and if you read that carefully, you'll see that there's conditions, but we do meet those. And some of the things are, stressed water basin, okay, and quality issues, and what other? And this limits our economic expansion. So, I think that we should take advantage of what we can, because I don't see us getting this type of water anyplace else. So that's where I'm coming from. Also, I would say, we're not gonna abandon our water system, because,
That would be
nothing's
part
ever
of
perfect, and,
Operation Policy 10. One of them is you're
right.
not supposed to abandon what you already
I
have.
view this as an insurance policy, really.
Yeah. In their, what was put in their package for the Board of Directors was a map of the communities that are being investigated. It looks like there's about 28 of them. There's a South Shore study, that's towns down here, a Metro West, and an Ipswich River one. And I assume that these ones would be being looked at, taking the opportunity to get in for, entrance for none. I mean, that, we were considering using Minebrook for, looking at that as well. One of the comparisons was the entrance fee versus the cost of connecting. If we're able to get in for free, and it's a supplement, and I would think that we should look at. One of the things that is required is a favorable town meeting vote.
Right.
And so I think that you would first want to get that before you, spend any other money. And I'm not sure what would be required from the town of Norwood, whether there's a town meeting vote, or the selectmen can say yes, and maybe, I think Jim, when we last were looking at it, was doing some negotiating as to what the wheeling charge would be. But anyways, you can see that there are probably, like I say, maybe 20 to 30 other communities that I can see who have problems, and I certainly know that one that's not listed that was recently in the papers was Cambridge. They have also in the, what was presented to the Board of Directors is, they have a sustainable level of 300 million gallons per day. They're roughly using 200 million. They break it down that the 50 of those million that's available, they said we gotta hold that for future growth and whatever, leaving basically 51 million gallons for if people like Walpole or any of those other 28 communities want to apply for.
So, for the viewers, just a little background. Patrick Fasinello, the first speaker, has been our MWRA representative for approximately, 20 years?
Oh, yeah.
What many people don't realize, we are already members of the MWRA, contrary to what certain folks have said at town meeting. Our sewer system is part of the MWRA, and therefore we are members. They haven't treated us shabbily. We haven't done anything out of line. far as our current relationship with them. The other thing, the board has pursued this previously, actually started discussing it almost 4 years ago. And a couple years ago, we did vote to pursue a supplemental membership. And we were turned down by the finance committee, basically, and ultimately a vote at town meeting. And the primary rationale, as Mr. Abbott mentioned, was the cost of the membership. At that time, to join the MWA was costing north of $6 million. And we had a consideration of whether just to pursue another well that we have in our inventory, which would cost a similar or possibly $7 million, somewhere in that, but without any 100% guarantees or insurance policies that we'd get the water we're seeking. So ultimately, we feel it's time, the timing, I mean, we were right to be on top of this. Now we have a lot of competition. If we don't scramble, chances are the door will be closed on us, and even though we're a member, we won't have the chance to avail ourselves of membership. And this is long-range planning. This is thinking 25 years down the road, when Walpole could have a population of 45,000 or 50,000 people, and have a fully developed Route 1 corridor and many other things, which would create a huge demand for water. And we may easily find at those days that on our own, we don't have the resources to satisfy that demand. So I think as a result of discussion, I think the commissioners are in general in favor of proceeding, and we actually took a vote to have some of our monies for this year set aside to explore alternative water resource possibilities. And the number one there was the MWRA as a supplemental membership. So I think we're within our voting history here to proceed to explore this information and to explore trying to get an okay or an approval or a blessing from the MWRA regarding the potential slots. It's a little bit nebulous from what we spoke on the phone with the staff, I think it was 2 weeks ago, of the MWRA. The data they give us says that ultimately they have used up to 330 million gallons a day model. And the average use is 197 now. So that's dropped down because of conservation reasons and other methods of tightening up the systems and being more frugal and conservation minded, so that they have this capacity. They actually have a capacity of 100 million gallons, and that would have to be distributed on a decision-making basis from their board of directors among these 20-some communities. There's a possibility that a number of the towns will be left out. And we may have an advantage in the fact that we're not looking to convert our system over to the MWA. We're simply looking to establish an ongoing relationship and have a supplemental service, and having the capability of expanding in the future, just as possibly the MWA will expand their water resource base as well. So it's nothing about downsizing the Walpole Water Department or minimizing the high quality of Walpole water we have or our existing well system, but we have to be realistic about the future. Wells do have life cycles, and they do have threats from the government agencies and the environment of possibly contaminating those resources or rendering them not usable for the gross product that the town requires as far as production of water. So that being said, I was kind of looking for maybe some ideas from our staff of how we could proceed. I understand that the last couple towns that were accepted, Ashland and Burlington, used a consultant at some stage. Now, we have a much less complex situation and potential argument and case to be made than either of those two towns. And we do have a lot of the data, so I think Scott has suggested correctly that we could probably internally assemble a reasonable amount of that information. And with the presence of Derek, we would have maybe some additional manpower to see what, what can be put together on that front as far as the basic underlayment of information. But it would be good to have some individual has been through the process to really give us a template for proceeding, sort of a game plan over a calendar of how many months this will take, what are we gonna do, what do we do first, and how do we establish a communication link with the MWA to make sure they know that we're making this effort and that we have taken the proper votes. Now, the only thing I can think of at the upcoming town meeting, and I mean, this is for everybody to discuss, I'm just kind of laying out my thoughts, that it might not be a bad idea to share some of this situation with them, since it's an opportunity for the town, it's not an opportunity for us. It's an opportunity for the town to save $7+ million and to have an insurance policy for water from now to the end of time, which is a very significant thing. And I think people that read national news and national media and look what's going on the West Coast and the Southwest America realize how important water is and how difficult it is when you get a drought or you run out of water or you have water that is not of a quality that's acceptable for consumption. So, I just would implore us to think a little bit proactively and a little bit aggressively to try to make sure we stay on this and move the ball forward and take advantage of the opportunity. The last thing I'd want to do is have like Tom Brady in the football game the other day, wait too long to get the snap from center and lose the game. So we've stalled, but I think maybe we just weren't persuasive enough with the town meeting, or maybe didn't give them enough facts for them to understand why they should vote to proceed with this. But we could make some sort of a presentation, Bill. You or I have done this type of thing possibly before. Make a presentation, at least to let the town meeting know what's going on, and maybe even ask them to give us a straw vote, just so we have a sense that, if we do all this and get a package together by Springtown meeting, they would formally vote on it. So, these are my thoughts. Go ahead, Scott, anybody, whatever.
Well, John, and what I'd like to hear is that, I see this as like a win-win for us, but I'm only one person. There's two sides to every story. So, I know Commissioner Abbott is over there and wants to say something. There's gotta be people who say, yeah, but.
Well, I can tell you what was, one of the things that was brought up is that they thought that there would be special assessments and whatever, which the MWA said, no, we don't have special assessments. But I think the concern might be that, let's say that there is a PFAS problem, if we're getting our water from the MWA, then if the MWA has a problem, it's spread over the, whatever the number of communities that are in the system. If we're not, we build our own treatment plants. Conversely, if there are something up on the North Shore, if you're a member in the water system, I presume we'd be, be obligated to pay part of our share of the thing, even though it would not benefit us. One thing I would suggest, if we're interested in doing it, and I think being available with no entrance fee sort of changes, why not go for it? You may get turned down, but it's probably a small amount of money as opposed to looking for, a few $1 million for an entrance fee. I would think it would be worthwhile to let the MWA know that we are interested based on the program of reducing or eliminating the entrance fee, and asking if they have any suggestions, which they'll probably tell you, hey, follow the policy or whatever, but to let them know, so when they draw another map, our town is one that's there. In terms of, it probably would be worthwhile to have asking on town meeting Article 2 to have a report, just to indicate that this is something and that we brought it up before, and we can lay out some, description of why and, whatever. The 5-year thing is where it ends. It also can end earlier if the 51 million gallons that they feel is safe to make available is used up. There could be a bunch of communities
Or
jumping.
4 towns could do that.
Yeah, so
And then
I think it would be, if we're interested, and I think with the elimination of the entrance fee, what we, getting the town meeting votes, and then you start going with the rest of it, and you have to hire an engineering firm. I don't know what that would be, but I don't know, Rick, if you had any, or Scott had any idea what it would cost to have an official engineer stamp, here's your application, even if we end up providing a lot of the information. But it would seem to me it wouldn't be hundreds of thousands of dollars, but
So
Well,
I
we
don't
have-
know why we need an engineer to stamp our application. The application is not that complex, I couldn't imagine, it's just a letter form
right,
to express your interest.
Right.
So we certainly, I would think we need to hire a consultant. Where it's gonna get sticky is when we go to make the actual connection. Say we get authorization from town meeting, we get through all the hurdles with the MWRA, the legislation, and everything else that comes along with it. Now it comes time to actually construct the connection with Knoll, wherever that may be. There are several options to connect to the town of Knoll. We gotta find the one that's most practical for both of us, mostly us. Because hydraulically, the one at Union Street, right now, as it sits, will not work. Because whatever water we have left in our system, because of simple hydraulics, will dump into the town of Knoll, because of pressure gradients. So there's a good amount of engineering that would have to be done. It's not as simple as just get permission and go make the connection. It's not that easy.
Right.
And you're gonna be looking at some capital expenses to do that work. As to what that is, I don't know. We need to find out what the degree of work is first, before we can actually, so I think what I'm saying is, it's a two-part thing. We get authorization from town meeting, get through the legislation and all that stuff, and then get an appropriation to do the actual construction.
Well, yeah, but I don't think, community members and town meeting members have to realize the money's gonna be spent. There's no alternative. If we pursue another well and we start going down that road, there are millions of dollars to be spent there too. There's no free lunch. Don't think it's, we can do it, or we can just postpone it and kick the can down the road. And you can't kick the can down the road. And plus, you can't assume that our current wells and resources are gonna be adequate for 20 years from now for the needs of the community. Now, that's where, it's hard to explain to people, but the way the regulatory system works, and I'm not saying it's right, but people have to understand this. The system we're under now, we're kind of in a begging position with DEP for them deciding how much water we can take. It's not about how much water we have access to, but it's how much water they think we should take. And they're relatively stingy. They assume a zero-sum game, which that is, we're not living in a zero-sum game here. We have a growing population, and we have probably more space available along our rail lines and along our highway structure on Route 1 corridor and 95 than many towns do. So we have great commercial development potential as well. And to give you an example, just in the paper this past week, the biotech industry has been looking at this area for about 10 years to expand. And now they've decided, we have Siemens in Walpole, but they've decided to put in a biotech park in a special zone in Norwood. And part of the big rationale for that is Norwood is unlimited to getting water from the MWR because they're on the MWR system. They're not limited as to how much water they can get. We couldn't sign that contract because we don't have that guarantee of that additional increase of water. We're not in charge of our own destiny. So that's a big part of having our foot in with the MWRA. But also, the threat of risk of something going wrong, we can depend on our neighbor communities possibly for a short period of time, but in the long term, that isn't gonna solve the problem. And to the degree, people talk about the sole source aquifer and so forth and so on, but to the degree, it's a blessing, but it's also a limitation. So if we can have, I don't know if you call it insurance policy, redundancy, multiple resource avenues and venues for the community going forward, we're in much healthier shape for everybody. So I would just, Jeff, you want to say something?
I had a question. When it went to town meeting, was it because it was a borrowing article?
No, I think there was
Just
two
go back
articles,
on
and
that.
correct me if I'm wrong, Rick. One was, and it's one of the questions in operations policy number 10 is, you got the local approval of either the city council or town meeting.
Okay.
The other was, I think for some reason, 170,000 sticks in my mind, would be to investigate, certainly Norwood would say, okay, you will, but you do investigate what has to be done on our side, and you're gonna pay for, if you gotta upsize some pipes or whatever, and that you'd have to have, as Rick had mentioned, a pump to push the water in, and certainly a meter, so you would know, okay, we used X number of gallons, so we can tell the MWA probably required, so they know what to bill. So, I don't know, Rick, does 170 or 175,000 sound about?
That sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, so those were, I think there was two articles. So
Well,
there
one
no
was for
borrowing.
300 and something to look at, to investigate the resources.
No, Bill's talking, I believe, 4 years ago.
Yeah, 4 years
Oh,
ago.
Okay.
So there were two articles, none
Yeah.
of them were borrowing, they were, one was just a simple yes or no, and if you answered no, then the answer was no action on the second one, because you weren't going ahead with it.
No, there's a phone on the floor.
Yeah,
I don't want
that's
to
mine.
step
Yeah,
on
I
it.
got it.
Is that yours?
Yeah.
So, that's why I'm thinking that if we're interested, certainly we would want to have an article for the spring town meeting. It might be worthwhile to have a report under Article 2, but I would certainly also let the MWA know that we are looking into this. So, because that map was what was presented to the Board of Directors when they took that vote. And you see, there's plenty of communities, and I know that some of them, we certainly know Weymouth, it's been an issue with Cambridge. I know Brockton forever has had water issues, and I presume that some of those communities have PFAS problems.
So I think what we'd be looking to do is very similar to, I believe, what the town of Sharon did. Town of Sharon connected to the MWRA via Norwood. So we could certainly reach out to the officials in Sharon and see exactly
Rick,
what approach they took.
Rick, did they connect to the MWA, or did they just get a connection to an MWA community, emergency?
They're connected to Norwood, I believe.
Yeah, I know they connected to them, but it looked to me, because I first thought, oh, I should be able to look and there'd be similar things of the Burlington and Ashland, which are like 46 pages, 32, just for the Water Resource Commission's report, that there would have been something in the Sharon. Once I finally got what Sharon has done, it appears to me as an emergency connection
It may
with
very well
Norwood.
be,
And they're,
because they're a non-MWRA community,
yeah,
so their situation was a little bit different.
but I don't think it was, I don't think it was to supplement their water. I think it was an emergency connection, and they're going well over 1,000 feet to get to the point of making the connection. And that's when I couldn't find any other information until I finally found something. It appeared that, to me, it was more of an emergency connection like we have with Foxborough, and Norwood has one with us. Now, you're right that Sharon's not an MWA community, we are, and so there isn't the issue with us having an emergency connection.
Right,
With
but I
no-
think that we're well on our way, because we've got the article on the fall annual town meeting warrant to investigate the supplemental supplies.
Yep.
So one of those we know is obviously gonna be the connection to the MWRA. That'll probably be the primary focus of, all our attention will probably go towards that initially.
Yeah. The latest, it's over a year old, for Minebrook 4 was 3.5 million, and I'm sure it certainly is in the fours, I would suspect now, but,
Well, I mean, we can, that doesn't, a vote for pursuing the MWA supplemental service does not forego the loss of Minebrook 4. That
No,
can
no.
still there,
Yep.
it's still a resource. We can always develop it at our own pace, when the time is right, whenever the town decides they need it.
But there are gonna be many people, I would guess, that are gonna be suspicious, okay? MWRA or any other state agency doesn't typically give things away for free. There's gonna be a price tag to this MWRA thing. What it is, who knows, like Bill said, if something goes wrong up in the North Shore, they're gonna pay for it.
Well, I would just not rebut that, but my answer to that would be that
It's not because they have so much water, John, they wanna give it away. Okay, they have billions of dollars in infrastructure. And someday that note is gonna come due, and somebody has to pay it, okay? So they need users.
they
They're in
do.
the same situation that we're in, whereas 10 years ago, they're pumping less water now than they were 10 years ago. So aren't we? That's all because of conservation and things of that sort. But
Yeah, well, they were pumping water to waste, weren't they, Patrick, at a huge,
They, for the past, a few years, they have been, what they call it, wasting the water, to the extent that it was the supply of the city of Boston. That's how much water they were dumping
have to spill water, but you say it's the best water
in the country.
in the country, okay? As it sits in the Quabbin, that's probably true, okay?
That's true.
But as it traverses 130 miles of pipeline, certain things happen from that water.
And they're aware of that. That's why they have a redundancy with the aqueducts.
now even,
Yeah, with the aqueduct, but once it hits Norwood,
Well, no,
And-
once the water comes into a town, now you're dealing with the infrastructure of that town. If you have pipes that are full of tuberculin and other things, that's gonna be in the water, obviously.
right, that's my point, I don't wanna sit here and make things, always rosy because the Quabbin is the greatest water in the world. It has to go through many, many miles of pipe to get to us, or Norwood, or Dedham, or Westwood, or wherever it's going to. And as you guys know, and you've seen, there are certain things inside of those pipes.
But that's a transmission problem, that's not the water.
Right.
Yeah.
well,
And you know what we should do? We should go to a tap in Norwood and take a a quantity of water and test it. And see what's coming in, because one of the things we could do is wheel it through Norway.
That's what we have to do. You don't have much choice there.
And let's see what type of water they're going to be wheeling to us.
Yeah,
We haven't done that.
And I understand, I don't expect that quality is gonna be an issue,
I,
but, you know, it's
well,
the selling point of, you know, the best water in the world, or the
Yeah,
best
you-
water in the country.
You don't have to defend this man, I mean, he wants to, we have good quality water, he's defending it, he put his life into it. So no one's challenging that, I mean, you don't have to defend Walpole Water, Rick,
I'm
to
not
anybody.
defending Walpole water.
We're-
I'm just
we're
telling- I'm just
blessed.
stating a fact.
We have Walpole Water, but we're talking about the future here, Jeff, and I think this is serious, it's not, I don't wanna waste a lot of time studying other towns, dancing around, pussyfooting, dragging our feet, cause like Bill says, we're not even on the map here. Before, we were in the driver's seat, now, 2 years later, you got 20 other towns going after the same thing we were trying to do. We pussyfoot around some more, we're gonna be out of the picture, you can just tell the residents, tough luck. Your kids aren't gonna have the water, but we got it today, so you can feel proud of yourself. So I don't wanna get in that situation, I wanna be aggressive on this, and what I really wanna do is, I want the authority, the board to find out somebody who can advise us, some advisor, consultant, even if it's just a couple of meetings initially, to get us moving on the right track. Finding out who to talk to, where to get the paperwork in, just make sure we're not just waiting from meeting to meeting and trying to find out what we don't have and this and that and the other thing. I really like to get the ball rolling, so.
I would suggest that, one, we send in a letter to the MWA to say that, yes, we are looking at this. So at least from, what someone asked, at least we're on the map there. Because right now, as far as I know, the MWA is thinking, well, they're fine with what they are, they're not interested. Yet we now, with the no entrance fee, the arithmetic has changed. It might be something we'd very much be interested in. The second thing is, maybe Scott or somebody could just call Ashland and Burlington, just say, what did they provide? Now, both of those communities were in a much different situation. They had multiple years of using operations policy number 5, emergency connection, and I think the MWA, after like 3 years of always seeing it, say, hey, wait a minute, you're now considering these emergencies during the summer as part of your system, it's time for you to actually join, pay an entrance fee, et cetera, et cetera. So at least we could find out, maybe some information, and maybe they're, having looked at what the Water Resource Commission did, it seems to me there was a lot of work that was done, particularly about, have you exhausted, all your local supplies, and why you can't do this, and why you do, there was a lot of information in those reports.
Well,
So
they
there's
have
two
full-time
communities
jobs
that
though,
have
too.
recently gone through the process.
The problem is, those people work for the town of Ashland, they got things they gotta do. The consultants are one who can give us the dedicated attention and move the ball down the field, even if
I
he's not gonna
found,
run a meter
When
crazy,
I-
but just to get the template of the steps, so we don't lose out. We voted twice already, we've already voted that we wanna pursue this. We voted to join if the town meeting let us once before. We don't have, in the letter to the MWA, we should say, the commission has decided to proceed with an application for joining the MWA, and we're working through the requirements of our town and your requirements. Just let them, make it
Yes.
substantive.
But John, you mentioned we are a member already.
Yeah, well,
but
the
not
water.
of the water
Yes,
system.
Yeah.
it's just water.
Is the commission interested in pursuing this?
Oh,
Well, then let's
We've already
let's move
voted on
along
that.
here.
We're not going back, that's like groundhog, we've already voted that.
I don't remember us
Yeah, we
voting
did, we
that.
voted, before we did our phone call, we voted to pursue that, and we even told the finance committee about it.
So,
We have it on record that we are in favor of pursuing a connection with,
An alternate water source was how it was
Yes.
phrased. This is in
I
the
don't
article.
remember that.
Well, you make the motion, whatever you want.
Well, I
You
would,
wanna proceed with the MWA, applying for
I would
membership?
move that, the Sewer and Water Commission of the town of Walpole, is interested in,
Not interested, we're proceeding with an application. We're pursuing an application.
are we?
Yeah, subject to approval
Subject to
from-
the town's
All
requirements and the
All right,
MWA's requirements.
you make the motion.
I don't think we need a motion, we've already voted on it.
That's what I thought.
I don't recall it.
Well,
Do you recall it, Bill?
Well, that we were, it
A
was.
specific motion.
Not a specific motion that meant, it was looking at additional supplies, and one of the options is the MWA, Minebrook 4 is
That-
another option. I don't know what else there would be
I know
for
that
option.
motion,
And
but
that's what I think that, I think that you just wanna get on record with the MWA that we are starting the process. And I would say, if there any, even if, I would say, is there any advice or suggestions that they can provide? Even if they say, hey, look at policy number 10, and that's their answer. But at least it would be, then they would be on the record that
Well,
we
we
are
asked them
officially.
that on the phone conversation, and basically, we were told to follow the 10 points, and if we had questions, they recommended we talk to Ashland or
And
Burlington,
yeah.
and if, talk to the
thought
consultant
I
that
mentioned
handled
that.
either case, because they could give us a template of the next steps.
Okay.
So that we're not, so I would make that motion then, that
what
the
me
Sewer and
hear-
Water Commission,
Jeff is-
So the August 22nd meeting, we voted on fall 2022 town meeting on Article 9. Water Department was for Willis membrane replacement, raw water transmission, supplemental water source investigation. And we voted on the article. We voted on this already.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
this
not
one-
concerned
this
about
is
that.
beyond
I'm
that.
saying,
This is about
letting the MWA
Yeah.
know that,
This is-
Oh, that I'm perfectly fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
All right.
that,
But
I'll make that motion, that we send a letter to the MWA telling them that we are interested in.
no, we're pursuing
Pursuing an
membership in the
application
MWRA.
as supplement water supply from the MWA.
Subject to.
they- Well, I mean, it,
You know, they're subject to, it's gonna be subject to.
Yeah.
All right, Derek, could you read that back?
That you guys would like
This
to
is
make
the
a
motion.
motion to extend a letter to the MWRA, pursuing the application.
that we are
We
pursuing
have voted to pursue
an application
an application for
for
membership.
supplemental water from the MWA water system.
All right, Bill, I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
real quick discussion, should we indicate the reason why we're pursuing it? Because of local water quality issues? Or- There's 3 criteria that they give you, so.
Stress basin is the best option.
Right, we
Yeah.
are in a stress, yes,
Due primarily to a stress basin
right.
situation. And
Well,
we
that'll
intend to,
come.
intend to proceed with all haste to engage your agency with our application.
And again, I think the reason I'm suggesting it is so that they are are aware that, yes, somebody else, in addition to these other communities who are also proceeding, that there's one other community. And remember, there's only 51 million gallons a day of available, and it's 5 years, you have to get your application, whatever, or be there before they run out and have allocated the 51 million gallons a day. And that's
Okay.
liable to happen quick.
So it's moved and seconded, all in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
I know it's early to have a article for the spring annual town meeting, but at some point, we'll have to address what we want on that, spring annual town meeting in terms of article related to this. And we also should look at what's required. Does Norwood need one, so that we don't wanna find out that, oh, we gotta wait another 6 months or whatever, because we missed a Norwood town meeting that is required to authorize us to get theirs, to get the water through them or whatever.
So how do we pursue where do we connect in Norwood and what's it gonna cost? Because that needs to be part of the spring, especially if it's a borrowing article.
Well, that's subject to, like Rick talked, but I think town administrator keeps telling me, we're already connected at Union Street. Rick says that isn't adequate for supplemental service, or just inadequate for any water. I mean,
No, I think it would be,
it could be enhanced.
no, it'd be
To 8 inch?
sufficient, but it's a hydraulic issue, it needs to be,
You need a
like
pump.
Bill noted, it needs to be a pump.
Yeah, well,
And the other thing,
Well, it's not just that easy, John, I think just, well, it doesn't work that way.
well, the other
It's not that
thing,
simple.
the
well,
other
I'm
thing
not
that
saying
you
it's
have to
simple, but
concern yourself,
it's
though,
not killer of an expense. A pump is part of any water system.
John,
I mean,
there's other potential issues. Most water systems, the big mains are at the center and they go out like a tree. You may find that the line on Union Street, or that would connect is a small little line, or trying to draw whatever amount of water we would be allowed to draw, would just not work, and that, you know, the cost may be that we're replacing some lines in Norwood, and that would require an analysis, and I think that Norwood has the equivalent of Wright Pierce, who's what we use currently for those sort of things.
There are two viable connection points. One is on Washington Street, the other is on Union and Route 1. The Washington Street one would be a bit more expensive because we need to get to their, I believe it's their Rock Hill Street, which is just beyond the local line. What we would have to do is run a new line up Washington Street to roughly East Street. Because the pipe that we have down in that area right now is just undersized. It wouldn't be practical. Now, maybe you could do two connections.
Yeah.
Both areas, but this is what we need engineers to
Sure.
figure out.
yeah.
And you don't know what's the problem on the Norwood side. We already know what would be the issues on our side. We don't know what the issues are on,
In fact,
But-
4 years ago, when Norwood was gonna look at it, their consultant was Stantec.
Stantec,
Stantec,
I'm still not hearing you.
STANTEC, Stantec. I believe it's the old CDM or one of those. Anyway, the price that they had given us, I believe, was about $15,000 for them to investigate their end. Norwood had requested that we use their consultant, which I'm fully on board with, because it involves their system. Whether we have to have two consultants working together, I don't know. But
That's a
I think
different
it's
kind of,
one
I'm
with
talking
certain
more,
purpose.
I'm talking more about the government consultant, the political consultant, deals
Oh, I
with the
understand where you're
agencies,
coming from in
not
terms of
the engineering consultant.
I'm talking hydraulics and connections.
Yeah.
The political end of it, as far as, any one of those engineering firms could do that, but what they would charge, I don't know. And quite honestly, why you'd wanna pay one to do it? I don't
Which is
know
the
that- I don't
timing,
know that either.
Because if we do our usual, we try to do it on the side job, we're all doing 50 other things every day. By the time we get there, it's too late. We get
But
the
here-
finish
but
line
here's-
after the
here's
race was
thing-
over.
Here's the thing of it, John. You hire consultants, like when they do asset management, they do any other kind of study. 90% of that work is done by town staff. Okay? When you have an engineering study done, who do you think does the work that goes into that report? It's the town staff. The engineers don't send people out here to measure pressures, this and that.
To John's point, we got two things. We need a kick-ass application that gets through MWA, and we gotta get this through town meeting. So, I'm not a sales guy, I don't think any of us are, and I can't sell this at town meeting. But we need somebody that can package this, put together the business case of why we need to do this, and help us get it through both of those.
Right. What we're gonna do, what they're gonna do, I think, is exactly what Bill said. When you send a letter to the MWRA, they're gonna say, okay, here's OP10, this is what you do. I don't think they're gonna give one-on-one personal guidance, which is why I think you had a good point of reaching out to Ashland or whoever the other community was. I think Ashland's consultant is Woodard and Garden. We've used them a million times, so maybe you can find out about Woodard and Garden.
Certainly.
Working on it.
these are all technical considerations. And this board really are not expert in technical stuff. But we are the experts in making the policy. So basically, this motion is that the policy of the board is such and such. The technical details, we'll leave it to the experts.
No, I totally understand. I understand what you wanna do. I know what you're.
That's it. Yeah, well, I know there's all kinds of problems, there's different pressures and everything else, but that's, the experts can tell us in the end if it's even feasible, if our policy is able to be carried out.
Yeah, and
That's
I
it.
think it is.
Yeah, well, we can, okay, that's it.
Well, okay, so, my motion is to bring in after talking to Woodward and Curran or whoever, whatever associated advisors for Ashland and/or Burlington, to bring someone in to, from an administrative point of view, to give us some history of how they did it and what the steps are and what they recommend, how fast we go and what we focus on.
So what we'll do is, we'll try to get proposals from each of those firms, we'll go from a couple firms, to see what kind of expertise they have in dealing with this type of stuff. And if it's, not that costly, then maybe it can be absorbed out of the O&M budget, I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, we have a budget, and I agree, we don't have to have them do the work you guys wind up doing anyway, and you have it. But it's just, they're gonna give us, here's 1, 2, 3, and it should take 2 months or whatever, and so we just stay on top of this thing, and we wanna stay in communication. It's hard, because the MWA is not even, they're working remotely still,
I know,
and they,
as is 3/4 of the DEP.
and you can't even, they don't even answer, you've gotta just all email and hope somebody eventually gets back to you. So people have been recently through that, must have some ways to cut through the weeds, not to get stonewalled.
The consultant we could pay for out of the
Yeah.
supplemental article
Yeah.
that we.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we
And
would,
that's the intended purpose of it, I'm just
Yeah.
talking if you wanna get going before,
we do.
well, town meeting's
Town meeting's in 2 weeks, so
away.
I think
No, but
we're-
yeah, we wanna get going on, finding the consultant, get a couple bids in, so that
That's easy.
there'll be, the money will be authorized on the 17th, and we'll be able to get somebody in here. And in the meantime, we'll get our letter to the MWA letting them know we're pursuing this, and we're,
I'm sure our water consultant that we currently use has got a lot of experience,
who's that now?
Wright Pierce.
Oh, okay.
So, John, is your motion that we hire a consultant to basically,
Initiate the application process.
okay, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, did you make that motion?
I did.
So this is a second motion. We've already voted to send a letter to the MWA.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
something different.
Okay.
I think we're all on board with it. My recommendation would be we do it after Article 9 gets voted on for town meeting, or we know the funding's there.
See, that's the thing, we always wait.
No,
Just
we
another
do.
month.
We go out, we get the bids, everything like
I
that.
don't think
So when we're
it's
back
a matter,
here-
but we can go ahead and solicit the proposal.
I just wanna make the vote on this motion now.
All right, John, I second that.
Okay. Moved in second, any discussion? All in
I used to
favor?
have trouble voting favorably if we don't
We're
know.
not spending any money, we're just authorizing our staff to get us some proposals from a couple of their consultants, if they can do this.
I think
By the time we get that back, town meeting are gonna be over.
the motion was to hire a consultant, not to get estimates.
Yeah, we can always rescind it if we don't get the money.
Okay, so we'll solicit proposals from the consultant in anticipation of favorable action on that.
Right.
That's the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500, okay. Anything else on MWRA? Thank you. I'm sorry it was so disjointed getting you the info, but I think you'll find it interesting. And one of the most interesting things is the map that Mr. Abbott came up with. I didn't see that map, Bill, that showed all the other.
You know,
I
if
knew
you
of
go-
a couple of towns, I didn't know of all of them.
If you go to the MWA's Board of Directors website, they have a schedule of all their meetings in the past, and you can see what was presented, what the agenda was and whatever. And when I found that, I said, well, I'm gonna look, one of the things was like 200 pages long. I didn't care about most of it. And then I saw, oh, here's like the PowerPoint that they had. And I thought, oh, this is an interesting map. I'm just going to.
Could you give that map to Derek so he could make us all
Yeah.
copies of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
One of the interesting things is they show MWAR transmission lines. And they stop in the middle, and I'm thinking, well, you know, if Norwell wants water, somehow it's gotta go through quite a ways. Who's paying for that? And, you know,
Well, there's aqueducts too.
oh, yeah, no, I know, it's a blue line.
Like
is-
Norwood, I told you many times,
Yeah.
I lived with the aqueduct went right by my street when I was in elementary school. And it's a huge aqueduct that comes in. Where does it terminate? You know? I mean, this thing is pipes that are 5 feet in diameter, steel welded pipes. So I know, and that comes from Bellevue Tower down to Norwood. But it just doesn't terminate. I mean, there's gotta be,
Probably somewhere in Dedham, can't.
you know, so anyway, yeah,
Well, the thing about the two towns that it's interesting is that they're completely different. Burlington cost a fortune. They had to do all kinds of infrastructure, all kinds of new pipes, and everything under the sun. Ashland was very much like Walpole. They didn't have as much to do. And even with the admission fee, listen to this, their fee only turned out to be like $17,500 a year, which is like 50 cents on a water bill. That's all it cost them.
And
They
and
paid
right
the
now,
fee.
it's zero.
And right now,
that's
if we
why
can move, it's zero.
I'm saying, hey, I think that there's some potential problems in our application. We'll find out if it is, but I'm saying at this point, for free, let's, you know, short money, let's find out if we can get in, and the amount that you don't say, well, sign me up for $1 million. It's, the MWA looks and says, no, you only need this, whatever. And every 5 years, they look it back and say, are you using it all? Or if you need more, of course, you go through a process to say, I need more and justifying it. So, anyways,
Say, give them the
Okay.
price of chemicals and give them the price of electricity. Maybe a bargain, who knows?
Yeah,
Because you have to, remains to be seen.
well, keep good relations with Norwood in the meantime. Okay, let's move along here. We have Jarvis Farm parking lot.
yeah. What's the status?
Nothing has changed since the last time. we
Okay,
spoke.
why isn't anything changing?
I think I explained to you later, we're waiting for the final determination as to what.
Do we have to hire a consultant to,
No.
well then,
There's already a consultant that did it, so
so what's the holdup? Are we going to
we're not at.
not protect the
we're not at-
aquifer?
We're not at a point yet where we're going to construct until the determination is made as to what is actually gonna be done with the property in terms of recreational use. While we're on Jarvis Farm, Point Patrick, all those cabins that are up there.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with the
No,
parking
I
lot.
understand, I just wanted, before I lose my train of thought
Yeah,
here.
my
In connection with
concern,
Declaring those surplus and
Yeah.
getting rid of them.
my concern is all those vehicles in the watershed.
Well, I understand,
Yeah,
and it's,
and that's my only concern at the present time. The cabins are,
it's not, the parking lot issue has not been forgotten. It's-
but it doesn't seem like anything's happening. It's been like 5 years now since I brought this up.
Great.
The slowest moving thing.
well, then he's got 2 more years, Patrick. Calm down, he's got 2 more years to
No,
go.
Patrick,
I'll
in all
just keep
seri-
voting
In all
no.
seriousness, though, there's not a concrete plan as to what needs to be done, but there are a couple of preliminary things, and I'll get those to you. You can look at them.
Yeah,
I have to get them to you before, and
yeah, okay, that'll be good. All right, thank you.
So we did talk about the cabins.
the
Last-
cabins, there are several cabins up there that are in a state of disrepair. And they're gonna soon become a liability, whether, the kids destroy them or whatever.
How many cabins in total are there?
25.
25 cabins.
That's including the office building in front.
But you're gonna save that one, right?
Yeah. There are like 3 of them that are probably salvageable.
Yeah, but the one that has the sewer and water in it and,
Right. The main cabin, the 2 bathrooms, and a couple of the newer ones up on the hill. And one that's close to the field
Yeah.
should probably be salvaged, but the others that are like remote and scattered throughout the property, if you'd like, we can ask the select board to declare them surplus.
You know, when we bought this, this was one of the big concerns, were the cabins. And we had a whole bunch of different ideas. We could sell them, we could burn them, we could, I don't know, do whatever with them. And, I agree with you, that they are gonna become a liability. And, but, who's gonna pay for that?
Pay for,
For getting rid of the cabins?
well, you declare them surplus and you accept bids on them. If people buy them, they have X amount of days to get it out of there. They're all Walpole woodworker sheds, they come apart. They're all bolted in the middle.
So that's the other thing is, are we sure we're never gonna turn it back into a day camp?
I don't think in your lifetime it'll ever be turned into a day camp.
Well, I mean, it was perfectly acceptable to everybody to have this year in country day camp there. And interesting, we bought it and they hit me to prevent it from becoming a big megapolis of some type. But maybe a day camp isn't a bad use for the place.
Well, there was a certain amount of resistance when the recreation department was running the day camp down there, there was all kinds of concern.
Yeah,
So, I don't know why you'd wanna go back that way, but if you wanna do that, we could certainly recommend it to the recreation department.
I don't know, I'm asking it rhetorically to the commission, whether anybody's interested in that. The town's got a lot of recreation resources. Maybe they don't need another, you
I
know,
think if they-
sidebar.
I think the recreation department's already attempted to run one, and the fact that they aren't doing it, to me, seems like that wasn't generating much revenue. What they
Okay.
may look at and say, is there somebody else who runs day camps who says, oh, all right, I'm willing to pay whatever for your facilities, and here's, I need a guarantee that no one else can be doing their, you know, during those hours, and maybe they'd look that way, you know, basically
They
found
ran a
that.
few, I think they ran a few athletic mini camps down there over the summer. I think it was a private entity.
Yeah, but they didn't use the buildings.
No,
other than-
they just used the fields for,
And if the buildings aren't worth anything at this point in terms of, we don't want them because of liability, whatever, get rid of them.
No, I agree, and I
You know,
think
I mean-
you might even get some money for them at,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I mean, you don't want the risk, the fire, the damage, the personal liability. I agree with that, it's enough.
catch you on fire, they come in with that AFFF foam. Right, if there goes your PFAS.
Yeah, all right,
Yeah,
let's
that's,
go to meter to cash.
wow.
Question on meter to cash, I think the billing address changed. The address for payment changed.
I'm not sure the address changed.
Yeah, I think there was a letter to everyone saying that the address has changed, the PO box has changed. So what's its impact on the whole billing process? Are we,
It did
If-
change.
it did change, isn't it? Yeah. So what is its impact on the billing? Are we doing billing on time, or how much delay the bills are going out? Do you have any data?
I don't have anything, any
Okay.
delays.
So can we get the report next time,
Sure.
like next meeting?
Sure.
That's,
We've sent about, already, I believe, I just got the latest billing information, and I believe at this point, we've gone through all the cycles once. And I might be able to have a comparison to say, in the, not when the billing, comparing billing to billing, but usage. You know, for the 3 months usage in the previous fiscal year compared to and see, we selling more, less, whatever.
yeah, my only concern was that if you change anything like, address.
Yeah, no, this isn't,
the
not
whole
related
process
to
slows
that, I
down,
was just
yeah.
saying that something else, I might be able to provide some information.
Okay.
Cause we've reached like a quarter in, and last year I did at a halfway point, so just give you more information of early, whether we're ahead of schedule or behind, or maybe on schedule.
And there was I think last meeting, there was a demo by Drop Counter, one of the vendor.
Yeah, I wasn't able
Yeah,
to,
so we were there. There was a follow-up,
We got the follow-up from him, plus we got the contact information for the other vendor as well.
Vertex one.
Yeah,
So what do you want to do with Vertex? You want to do a demo, or?
well,
If you'd like to,
yeah, do we wanna just do it as a subcommittee?
Yeah.
And then present back to the board?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so let's go pursue that.
Okay, good. All right, then the next item is Robbins Road Septic Facility operating hours. I think Scott reported that we got the vote.
Right, last Wednesday they voted favorably for that, so, if a decision's made that the hours need to change to more suit the needs of the department, you have the ability to do that, like I said, between the normal working hours and working days of Monday to Friday, 7 to 3:30 PM. Doesn't mean they have to be set to those hours. You have the flexibility to set the range to whatever you want, increase or decrease.
Now, I'm trying to remember the gentleman that came in that was so concerned about it. Was he looking for later in the day,
More hours.
just more hours in
More hours.
general?
More hours
So what are
and
the
less
hours
waiting.
right now? Less what?
Well,
More hours
The
and
hours
less
right now are
waiting
8
at,
till
Waiting.
2:30.
waiting for
8
the.
to 3:30?
2:30.
8 to 2:30, is that because of the school?
That's because that was voted by the ZBA in a prior decision.
And it was the schools?
It wasn't the schools.
Wasn't
It's
the
only
school,
Very early on, when the facility was first constructed, I believe the concern was the school being there,
yeah.
but
and-
that was when it was brand new.
Well, I
and then
remember the discussion, and it was, they wanted the trucks to stop at 2:30, so they wouldn't interfere with the school buses and et cetera, et cetera. If the school is no longer going to be there,
Well, the
what's the
school,
rationale for the 2:30 closing?
well, there's several points there. Initially, the concern was the school, the facility was never there in the past. Now that you've had the history of the facility being in operation, the concern is not there like it was initially. It's never been an issue in the last 20-something years. And they were asked for input at each step along the way. Every time an hour increase was requested, the school was involved, the fire department, the police department, the health department, engineering, and they all expressed either support for the change in hours or no concern.
So are we gonna change the hours to, what time would we change the hours to, 4 o'clock?
No.
Why not?
Well, we have the normal working time of Monday to Friday, 7 to 3:30, but you can't
Okay.
stop it right to the minute. So
So-
that's really, now that gives, that change gives the board the flexibility to change them as we need it. So it doesn't automatically make it 7 to 3:30. That's not really practical,
Why not?
because if we work until 3:30, and I'm to deliver until 3:30, you're not gonna make that time window. You're not gonna be able to receive a delivery at 3:30 and get out at 3:30. You're not gonna have the operator the chance to get back cleaned up at the end of his shift. So 3:30 is within the windows, but it's not something that you wanna go right to.
Can they start at 7?
I would say, start a little bit later, give the operator time to get there.
Well,
Now,
I mean, how long does it take to get there?
It starts at 7 o'clock, right?
yeah, they start at 7 o'clock. This is the point where, everybody meets in the morning and disperses from here to start out. So you'd be going from this location, picking up the work truck and going to the facility. So you can't be at the facility at 7 AM,
So 7:15?
potentially.
Okay. And then, how long, for instance, what's the average discharge time for a truck?
It depends on how much they have on the truck.
Let's say a full truck.
It's like 4,000 gallons.
Yeah, you could be there 15, 20
Huh?
minutes. You could be there 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It depends.
How many minutes?
15 to 20 minutes.
50, okay. So we could make this, at the given time to wash up and such, to 3 o'clock, right?
When the truck gets there, he has to get into the facility. The operator has to make sure everything is done according to policies, the right truck, the right addresses. He has to go over the paperwork from the MWRA. He has to test it, visually inspect it. Has to be hooked up. You have to discharge. Anything that spills or anything, you have to clean up. So it varies based on, load by load.
Okay, so at 3 o'clock, that would be the last time they could discharge.
I would say.
Okay.
And suppose two trucks say, yep, I got until 3 o'clock, and they show up at 3 o'clock.
That's another issue.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
that's
the
why we-
whole purpose was, one, he wanted additional hours, if I recall, we added a half hour at the ends of each. And in the end, and there was no complaint from the school or anybody else, they would say, fine, that's okay. And it really, to make it more flexible, just said, we operate between this hour and this, and give the department the ability to change them based on, you know, maybe in the winter, it's, we can tighten it, maybe during the summer, I don't know enough about our operation there, but it
Right.
gives the flexibility that if we find something that's not working, we've made the parameters as far as we wanna go, and we can make changes without having to make an appointment with the ZBA
Exactly.
and having a public hearing, which it was Scott and I were the only ones who were there for the issue. And it was really, once they found that nobody had any objection, particularly the schools, they said, fine.
7:15, I was thinking, in the summertime, when it's not freezing, is fine, because if they can't make the 3 o'clock dump, they can hold it overnight, and early in the morning, they can dump it. But in the wintertime, that's not possible.
Unless they have a heated garage.
Or
Yeah. But again, it's now the department can make changes without having to get the ZBA to change, because we've now don't want to limit it from, 8 to 3, whatever it was before.
As you find you run into an issue, you can adapt to it.
Yeah,
Well, what I'm thinking is that if we increase the time, made it easier, we'd raise more revenue. That's where I'm going with this. If we make it easier to dump there, there'll be more people dumping, and
I think one of the
It's a
ways
better
to make it
revenue
easier
stream.
too is to staff it full-time.
that's the only reason I'm even thinking of, getting involved with that.
You can contract the position out,
What position?
With the union, you can't.
no?
Nope, not even gonna touch that one with a 10-foot pole.
Okay.
the next item.
All right,
If we could have a volunteer there, like the dump site, right?
You can do it.
And I think Pat had his hand raised.
all right. Old business, we have the sewer expansion issue. We have a draft letter and an exhibit A for the,
We didn't have Exhibit A.
well, I know, I drafted an exhibit A and you,
Oh.
it
Well, I-
encompassed your
Yeah,
information with one additional bullet point at the end. So the notion was,
oh,
the staff gave us the letter that you have there, it's dated September 16th.
okay.
And this was pretty much, I think we pretty much accepted this letter. What I did is, I had Derek add, we have attached Exhibit A, which will give a ballpark idea of what the costs will be. And then down below, where it says, self-addressed envelope, please return by October, I would say probably 30th or 29th, something like that, since, give them 30 days, I don't know what you think about that, but maybe that's not a good, maybe it's better to keep it short, but give some, whatever the determination, whether it's October 14th or whether we give them a few more, another week or two. So, Bill suggested and I think that's appropriate, to give context to this, again, people at home, when the sewer's being expanded, the residents are surveyed, they're asked if they would agree to a betterment for the expansion of sewer to their neighborhood going down their street. That's approved and processed, it becomes a town sewer line, and they would have access to hook up if they so choose. But whether they choose or not, they will pay a portion of they will pay what's called a betterment, and that's 75% of the cost. And it turns out to be a little bit north of $3,000 in this case for each home,
For each year,
for each year.
for the 20 years.
So that, this is where the conundrum comes in, is people may think, well, 3,000 isn't too much, but basically it is for 20 years. And it is essentially a cloud on title or a lien on title. In other words, if you were gonna sell your home in 2 years and you agreed to this, when the new homebuyer attorney looks at the title, they'll say, well, you know, you've got a $60,000 obligation here on your house. So, you're gonna have to give my customer that money. So we wanna make sure people are aware that they're not just signing up for something they can walk away from or sell, that they're committing to something that's a pretty substantial lien against the home. So that's why Bill outlined the costs here. In the last one, he talks about the total cost of the project. I won't read this for the public, but the fact that the town will pay 25% and the residents will pay 75%. The estimates here come out about $6.3 million for the combination of Clarkson Drive, Hitching Post Road, Cypress Lane, and Bucket Mill Lane. And the 111 homes would each pay about $33,132. There's also an entrance fee if they hook up the sewer. And there's also a charge then going forward, if they do hook up the sewer, there's a charge for the sewer based on their water bill. And so they could be paying, like initially it'd come out to like $470 or $68, but over 20 years, with the increases in water, would probably average out to over $500 a year. So that those two different people, one who hooked up and one who didn't, the person who got the betterment and has the ability, has the sewer in front of their house, would cost them about $62,000, and the people who hooked up and actually used it would probably be costing them about $75,000 over the 20-year life cycle of this undertaking. So we're just providing that addendum to make sure they understand into the letter. So if the board wants to approve the letter, I would like the input on the date. Do you think we should?
I think it should go out of a week or so, yeah. It's a quick turnaround.
November
make it like
15th, maybe?
20, what's that?
I've just suggested November 15th is another 2 weeks beyond the end of October.
Well, no, this says October 14th, so we said the end of October, that gives them
All right.
a month.
Okay.
You know, I was just doing that quickly.
October 30th.
So if you have a tax bill,
Mhm.
and you're gonna have to pay, this tax bill plus the,
Right.
it's almost $800
What do you mean?
on each tax bill.
Well, the way betterments go, they will be on your third and fourth tax bill, which I asked, well, why wouldn't they go on all four?
Oh, just not on
Because,
all four?
no, the first two are preliminary bills, and apparently you can't put a betterment on a preliminary bill. The third and fourth one are actual bills, so you would take that 3,000
That's
and you
14,
get,
that's about $1,500 each one.
yeah.
So
And
they're gonna get a $1,500 tax bill
I
plus
looked,
the regular tax bill.
I looked at mine, because and this was, of course, it was only $150. I was quite happy to have if that was the betterment. But it was basically, you got the line, here's your property tax, and there's another line added, betterment, and there's a dollar amount, and here's the amount you have to pay. And
Yeah,
at
I
that
did-
time, it was, the interest rate was certainly a lot higher, but the,
I don't remember paying, I remember paying it on the 4 equal payments. Oh, there were two, wait a second, no, that's,
Yeah.
we only got taxed, it was only, twice a year.
I looked at
taxes.
back in my bills, we only billed
Right.
property tax twice a year, and
We
it
got
only
those-
showed up on the
So,
the actual one.
anyway, I remember paying that.
Yeah, well, can we
Okay.
decide that we wanna go to the end of October? I mean,
The end of October, yeah. So you just wanna, does anybody have any objection to that?
well, I have no objection to going, I just want to know, do we want to send an equivalent letter to the 155 property owners in North Walpole that was,
Not
at this
yet.
point?
Well, let's make sure Mr. Bain, we understand what he really wants.
All right, well,
And then I agree, we probably will go down that road unless he's.
because we were
thinking of
just
something
saying
else.
the same letter, and it's interesting, the estimate that we had was $40,000 additional, in addition to this letter, so it's almost like the numbers almost work out, with the exception of the betterment is much less, because instead of 111, you're talking 155, and there's some reasons why, but,
Yeah.
so,
Question on.
I'll find out from Mr. Bain whether he was talking about
Then
himself.
he needs his,
But
his,
we can do
neighbors
surveys,
to
isn't it?
come.
There's nothing wrong
He needs his
with
neighbors to
surveying
show
High
up
Street.
here.
Yeah,
So, question on Mr.
That's what he's talking
Baines
about, the
here.
survey would be the letter.
Yeah,
The
so-
letter's dated March
But I
30th.
think
Did
we
we
have
ever
to
respond?
find out whether he's talking to just himself.
that was his complaint
He would
Multiple.
have access
to,
himself,
that,
whether
to us,
he's
is, wait a
speaking
minute,
for the
we
neighbor,
came
because he
before
just
you
moved
first,
in,
and
he
you
may not know
promised,
what
and you didn't deliver.
So, when
No,
we
which is
talk
fine,
about High
but,
Street extension, there's
we are
Evergreen,
restricted.
Bramwell,
He
Cardinal,
is, saying that,
Metacomet,
you know,
Maunawee.
Yeah,
multiple
What areas are we talking about?
And sending the survey is not a problem, correct? Even if you
let's
send
see
it to
here.
based on
Street,
one person thing. if you're
Riding
sending it
Trail
from
Way,
High Street,
now that's,
That whole
we
section,
know
right?
the.
well, that,
Okay, now,
Portion of
this
Millbrook,
case is at
Oak
the
Grove,
rules are in person for that.
I'll show you a map.
It's going to come
I'm
out.
right here. I got it online.
You got it online. Well, it's all those, there's 155, yeah, North
But
High
when we
Street.
say High Street extension, there's nothing between Dover Drive and Homeward. Are we talking about that too?
No, it would be
Keep on
Coach
getting
Road,
past.
Ringe Road, Chickering Road, Dogwood Drive, Hickory Lane, Pine Hill Drive, South High Main Street, Homeward Lane, Northwood Drive, Buckboard Drive, and Sunny Rock Drive. And it depends, some are,
We have it over right here.
you know,
But that's not, Buckboard's not High Street.
Radiant Cruise.
no, the letter that we had
Get rid
lists,
of the 2.5.
Bucket Mill, Cypress, whatever, you'd do the same thing and you'd list all
What do you think?
the,
We could do
the
that.
streets that this, estimate considered.
You have a good point.
Yeah, so, my suggestion was that, we also do survey with the High Street customers. It's a survey, basically, we'll know that really 158 people are interested or not, we can pursue further,
Who put
because,
that list together,
which one,
the 158 people?
I think he said.
Well,
six-
Weston and Sampson looked at, we had asked, there was a whole area in North Walpole that we did not include in the sewer master plan. So basically we said, all right, the houses up in that area that were not included in the sewer master plan because they were full acre and it was presumed that there'd be enough room for a on-site septic. They said, okay, we'll look at all those, and that's where they come up
So
with
they
hundred
came
and
up
fifty.
with the list, okay.
Yeah.
Does it include, Coach Road?
Does it include Coach Road? Coach Road, yes, is
Okay,
one of
yeah,
the
'cause
roads.
that was one that,
Yes,
there were several failed septics.
That proposal was in one of our past packets. I can bring that forward again.
yeah, it was, we got the estimate was March 30th, dated the 2022, so,
But he wants to see if we just wanna send a letter out.
Same
Since
letter to the.
Mr. Bain has been here a couple times, send a letter out to that list as well, as we're doing it.
and he's not on that High Street. I believe that his lot is, well, High Street,
It's all the way up.
yeah, no, North High Street is what I think he's calling north, the northern part of High Street and Millbrook Ave, because High Street and Middlebrook touch each other.
That's his house right
I think he's, when they talk North High Street, I don't think there's a North High Street, I think he's talking High Street, the north part, cause High Street is a long street, and also there was another one, South High Street, so there's a section, two sections of High Street that he's, including in this survey, so there's not a South High Street or a North High Street, I think he was talking about the northern part and the
Well,
southern
he
part.
doesn't know who we're sending it to our engineers.
Well, they know
Yes.
exactly where all the sewer is and said,
Yeah.
okay, here's a section of High Street that's not sewer, they would be included if we go,
That makes sense, to
Yeah.
what he was saying.
yeah, so it would be included in what we're, I guess would call the North Walpole estimate of, a survey if we decide to go out
So
there.
do we wanna send that letter out as well? That's the question.
Well, do you want me to find out from Mr. Brian Bain as to,
Well, that's why I said
is he,
maybe we should just confirm it before.
Yeah.
How many people really has he talked to?
I'll find that out. So we could put, why don't we just put it on, and if at next meeting, if we say, all right, we'll send the same letter, we'll give, if it's 2 weeks later, they have
Is that okay with you? You wanna-
That's fine.
Okay. All right, that pretty much, let's see here. I think that wraps up unless anyone else, anything else. You've all met Derek.
Move to
He's happily on board. If you haven't, please go up and introduce yourself. Thank you, gentlemen. Meeting adjourned.